The smell hits you first. Fermented fish paste, charcoal smoke, the sweet rot of fruit left too long in the heat. It is 11 a.m. on a Tuesday in Hanoi's Old Quarter, and Marcus is standing at a street stall with no name, no English menu, no TripAdvisor listing. He is 24 years old, British, 6 weeks into a solo backpacking trip through Southeast Asia on $30 a day. He has a good camera, a nearly full journal, and the particular confidence of someone who has eaten street food for weeks without consequence. The vendor, a woman in her 60s, working a setup no wider than a kitchen counter, points to a bowl. Marcus looks at it. Pale slivers of fish, herbs, shredded banana blossom, a dark fermented dressing. Goika, raw freshwater fish salad, made here with fermented eel. $3. He pays. He sits on a plastic stool 6 inches off the ground and eats every bite. He would not think about that bowl again for 2 weeks. He takes a photo of the empty bowl for his Instagram story. He rates it 9 out of 10 in his journal. Then he walks back into the noise of the Old Quarter and disappears into the afternoon. What he doesn't know, what no one at that stall would think to mention, because why would they, is that something in that bowl was still alive when he swallowed it. What entered Marcus's body that Tuesday was Gnathostoma spinigerum, and its presence in a human being is, from the worm's perspective, a profound navigational error. Its natural route looks like this. Microscopic larvae hatch in freshwater, get swallowed by tiny crustaceans called copepods. Those copepods get eaten by fish, snakehead, catfish, eel. Inside that fish, the larva develops into its third stage, coiled in the muscle, waiting. The final destination is a big cat, a tiger, a leopard, a domestic cat. Inside a feline stomach, the worm completes its cycle, reproduces, and exits. Clean, purposeful, finished. In a human gut, none of that happens. There is no completion, no exit signal, no biological instruction that says stop, so it doesn't stop. Within roughly 48 hours, the larva, now a third stage juvenile, 2 to 4 millimeters long, hatched in his intestine and did the only thing its biology knows how to do. It pushed through the intestinal wall and started moving. Not attacking, not feeding in any meaningful sense, just searching. Trying to find the pathway that, in this body, does not exist. Here's what makes it worse. Look at the name. Spinigerum, spine-bearing. The worm's head is a bulbous structure covered in rows of sharp, recurved hooks, and it uses those hooks to physically cut through tissue. Muscle, fat, connective tissue, the eye. It isn't tearing through you out of aggression. It's doing what it was built to do in a body that was never supposed to contain it. For most infected people, the worm stays in muscle or subcutaneous tissue. Pain, swelling, a crawling sensation under the skin, unpleasant, survivable. But in a small percentage of cases, and this is the part that should make you pause, the worm migrates somewhere it should never go. A 2017 case series in a PMC indexed journal documented 23 confirmed cases of ocular gnathostomiasis in Myanmar over 8 years. 23, just the ones that reached the eye, just the ones correctly identified, just in one country, in 8 years. The CDC's DPDX database classifies gnathostomiasis as endemic across Vietnam, Thailand, Myanmar, and Japan. The fish carrying the larvae are snakehead, catfish, and eel. Fermented or raw preparation does not kill the larvae. The worm that entered Marcus was not weakened by the fermentation. It arrived intact. Most travelers who eat raw freshwater fish in Southeast Asia don't know this exists. And here's the uncomfortable question. How many have already eaten it? The first 5 days after Hanoi, Marcus feels nothing. He buses to Hue, photographs the Imperial Citadel in golden light, eats bun bo hue under a wobbling ceiling fan. He posts constantly, food, motorbikes, temple archways. He is having the trip of his life. Day 7, a vague abdominal ache. He blames it on traveler's stomach, the universal explanation for any digestive complaint in Southeast Asia, and takes an antacid from the blister pack in his pocket. The ache fades by evening. He doesn't mention it in his journal. Day 10, Hoi An. He rents a motorbike and spends the day on the coastal road, the sea flat and silver to his right. That afternoon, back at his hostel, he notices a strange itching across his left shoulder blade. Not a rash, not a bite. Something deeper, moving, like a muscle twitch that keeps relocating. It lasts 20 minutes, then stops. He assumes he pulled something on the bike. Day 13. The itching is gone. He feels completely fine. He writes in his journal that he's finally adjusted to the heat. But here's the thing. What was actually happening beneath his skin is documented in multiple return traveler case reports under the clinical term larva migrans, the migration of a larval parasite through subcutaneous tissue. The worm had penetrated his intestinal wall within 2 days of that Hanoi meal. It spent its first week moving through his abdominal cavity. The shoulder sensation on day 10 was the larva traveling under the skin of his back, its hook-bearing head carving a slow path through tissue he couldn't see and barely felt. It had been moving through him for nearly 2 weeks. He had no idea. Day 14. Marcus is in Da Nang, and his vision in his left eye is slightly blurry. Not dramatically, just enough to notice when he looks at his phone. There is no pain. He buys eye drops at a pharmacy, communicates through gesture, and uses them twice. The blur doesn't worsen. He doesn't think about it again until the next morning, when it's still there. Day 16. Slightly worse. The blur has a new quality he struggles to describe. Not haze, exactly. More like something at the edge of his visual field that doesn't belong there. He books a bus to Ho Chi Minh City, thinking he'll find a proper clinic if it continues. Day 17. The shadow is more defined. He Googles blurry vision travel and reads about dehydration and UV exposure. He drinks more water. He wears his sunglasses. Day 18. Early morning. He is in a hostel bathroom in Ho Chi Minh City, brushing his teeth. The fluorescent light above the mirror hums at a frequency that makes the white tiles look slightly yellow. He leans toward his reflection to check something on his face, and he stops. In his left eye, in the clear, fluid-filled space between his cornea and his iris, there is a thin white thread. He blinks. It moves. He steps back, then leans in again. It is still there, moving with a slow, undulating motion. Not random. Not a trick of the light. Something alive, crossing the front of his eye from left to right, then pausing, then reversing. He grabs his phone off the sink, opens the camera, holds it to his eye. The footage, later viewed millions of times, shows a pale, thread-like form, 3 to 4 millimeters long, moving across the iris in a slow S curve. It crosses, it reverses. It is unmistakably, horrifyingly alive. He holds the camera steady for 40 seconds. Then he starts screaming. He searches, worm in eye Vietnam. The results are sparse, clinical, and absolutely terrifying. He finds the CDC page on ocular gnathostomiasis and reads the line, "Larval migration within the eye can result in permanent vision loss, retinal detachment, or destruction of the lens." He reads it again. He is sitting on the bathroom floor. The tiles are cold. The light is still humming. He calls his mother and leads. She does not pick up. He calls again. She answers on the third ring, hearing something wrong in his voice before he says a word. He cannot explain it coherently. He starts with, "I think there's something in my eye," and it does not get more coherent from there. He films the eye again. The worm is still visible, still moving. He sends her the video. He described her reaction later in an interview. Silence for 4 full seconds. Then her voice, completely flat and completely certain. "You need to go to a hospital right now. Do not wait. Go now." He gets into a taxi, shows the footage, points to his left eye. The driver takes him straight to Tho Ray Hospital, one of Vietnam's largest medical facilities, with documented experience treating tropical parasitic infections. In the emergency ophthalmology intake, Marcus shows the footage to the attending physician. The doctor watches it once, then calls 3 colleagues over. They watch together, standing around a phone screen in a fluorescent lit room. None of them speak for a moment. Then the senior physician looks at Marcus and says, in careful English, "We need to take this out tonight." What the surgical team understood, and what Marcus was only beginning to grasp, was that time was the enemy. The anterior chamber of the eye is about 3 millimeters deep, filled with aqueous humor, the clear fluid that maintains intraocular pressure. The worm had been in this space for an estimated 4 days. In that time, its hook-bearing head had been abrading the lens capsule with every movement, causing early lens opacification, the start of traumatic cataract formation. Left another week, the damage could be irreversible. The approach was anterior chamber paracentesis under local anesthesia, a 1.5 millimeter incision at the corneal limbus, the border between the cornea and the white of the eye. The critical constraint was that the worm had to be guided toward the opening without being ruptured. If it ruptured inside the eye, its internal proteins would trigger a severe immune cascade, and the resulting inflammation could destroy more tissue than the worm itself had. The surgeon used a fine irrigating cannula to create a gentle current in the aqueous humor, essentially herding the worm toward the opening like a leaf toward a drain. The procedure took 34 minutes. Marcus was awake for all of it. He could feel pressure, not pain, but the unmistakable sensation of something happening to his eye. His vision was a wash of surgical light and blur. He could not see what was being done. Then the surgeon said, "It's out." What the team placed in a saline dish on the tray beside them was a 4 millimeter Gnathostoma spinigerum larva. Under magnification, its hook-bearing head was clearly visible. The rows of spines that had been cutting through his tissue for 3 weeks. It was pale. It was intact. It was still moving. The nurses documented it. It moved in the saline dish for another 6 minutes before it died. If you've made it this far and you want more stories like this one, cases that fall through the cracks of medicine and travel and human biology, subscribe and hit the bell. Every case we cover is this specific, this documented, this real. What you need to understand, and this is where the story becomes larger than one man in one bathroom, is that Marcus's case is not extraordinary because it happened. It is extraordinary only because it was documented. The 2017 Myanmar case series noted that ocular gnathostomiasis represents a fraction of total infections. Most cases manifest as cutaneous larva migrans, the crawling skin sensation, the shoulder itch, and are misdiagnosed as allergic reaction or dermatitis in roughly 70% of initial clinical encounters, according to a review in the American Journal of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. Thailand carries the highest documented burden. Researchers at Khon Kaen University estimate over 400 cases annually there alone, but systematic surveillance across the region is essentially absent. Vietnam, Myanmar, Japan, all endemic, all undercounted. The U.S. traveler data tells a quieter version of the same story. Return traveler cases documented by the CDC are predominantly linked to raw freshwater fish in Southeast Asia. The average time from exposure to diagnosis in returning travelers is 6.3 months. Not days, months, because most of these cases never reach the eye. They never produce a symptom dramatic enough to trigger the right diagnostic chain. The worm can survive in human tissue for up to 10 years. The footage has been viewed millions of times. Parasitologists use it in teaching. According to at least one published case note, it is the clearest real-time recording of an intraocular helminth migration ever captured on a consumer device. But here's what the footage actually shows, beyond the worm. It shows the 40 seconds before he screamed. A 24-year-old man, alone in a bathroom at 7 a.m., watching something alive move inside his own eye, holding the camera steady. He didn't look away. He didn't drop the phone. He kept filming until he had what he needed. That instinct to document, to hold still, to get the shot, may be what saved his sight. When Marcus arrived at Choré, the surgical team didn't have to guess where the worm was or how it was moving. They had 40 seconds of precise behavioral footage. They knew its speed, its range, its pattern. They went in with information instead of uncertainty. If this case made you think differently about what you don't know when you travel, drop a comment below. Tell us where you've eaten something you couldn't identify. We read every one. The worm had no such advantage. From the moment Marcus swallowed that bowl of goi ka on a Tuesday morning in Hanoi, the same bowl he rated 9 out of 10, the same bowl he photographed for his Instagram story, it was lost. It spent 21 days moving through muscle, connective tissue, and the aqueous humor of an eye, searching for an exit that doesn't exist in our anatomy. It was never going to complete its cycle. It was never going to find its way out. He found his way out. He went home. The worm is in a specimen jar in a parasitology lab in Ho Chi Minh City. And somewhere in Leeds, a mother still has that video on her phone. 4 seconds of silence before she spoke. She has never watched it again.